Here we are in our 1980 BMW 528 Brasil Braun. It's got a M30 B35, so the 3.5 liter version of the M30 engine that came in a 1990 735i. So one of the last M30 engines that we ever saw. We're gonna do a driving video and try to give you the experience of what it's like to be in this car. In all the years I've been doing Glen Shelley, I've actually only ever had one other E12, which was the first 5 Series. So genesis of the 5 Series, an evolution of the new class sedans. But the beginning of the dual headlight, 3-box design language, sport sedan segment that came to define BMW, the design cues in this car, make sure I clear my airplane wing. The design cues in this car carried through, and you could see them as late as even the E39 5 Series, and certainly up through the early 90s in the E34 5 Series. But this was it. This was the first 5 Series. The problem with the US market E12s was the engine. So this car was a 528, which came with the M30 B28 engine, the baby M30, and that engine it wasn't quite evolved enough to the potential that these later model M30s were. So that's all been remedied with this. The other important thing is there's a noticeable difference in horsepower, but there is a massive difference in torque, and torque is what you feel. So I just shifted at 5,000 RPMs in second gear, and I was indicating 45 miles an hour. If I take it to redline, I can do 55 in second gear. And then I have 3 more gears to go. This is a G265, the same transmission that was used in the E30 M3, one of GetTrack's finest gearboxes. I've sold a lot of cars at Glen Shelley, and there's certain cars that they just have a presence to them, like something intangible, and I get excited about anything. I'm easily persuaded. But having said all that, going down the road, this car absolutely has a prominence to it. It's got a stance. It's got like the color. It's so 70s. This Brasil brown, this kind of ugly brown metallic color, but it just looks so good. And then the design itself is just a little bit sleeker than an E28, which is another just strikingly good-looking car. But the E12, they didn't make as many. They're older, not as many have survived. We just didn't see as many here in the U.S. So it really, going down the road, it really just does have a intangible element to it. When you drive these cars, you're transported back to an era when BMW wasn't a mass market brand. It was a small, hungry German brand that had uncompromising values when it came to performance and handling. In the late 70s, looking for a car that would go around corners that you could haul your family around in, you really had to choose between a sports car or a family car or a normal sedan, where if you could afford a 5 Series, if you could find one, most likely imported by Mr. Hoffman, you could have both. So I've let this crossover go a little bit farther. We've got a nice open road, and I'll give it a 1-2 shift, and you can see a little bit of acceleration. 53 miles an hour in second gear, just kissing the rev limiter. We put a catalytic converter on it, a high flow cat, so it's emissions compliant. It still sounds wonderful through the Ireland Engineering headers and the exhaust. It's just a little bit quieter. But the trade-off is you get a little bit more intake noise, which sounds just the business. Coming up to our right-hand corner, roll into the throttle. I'm healthily in third gear at 4,000 RPMs. A brush of brake, check the entry speed, back on the throttle, and throttle steer out. Not a chirp of tire from the front tires. You know, you just go back in time and think about cars this size that did this. How many American muscle cars were just slayed in the corners by this car, even though it would have been remarkably slower in its original 528 form. Driving this car in modern traffic, even though it's certainly not fast compared to modern cars, it just, you feel like a shark. You feel like a shark in a school of jellyfish. Like this poor guy in this blazer's just, it's all he could do to go down the road, much less go around a corner. And here I am just nipping at his heels in my 80s BMW, my brown 80s BMW. Sparkly brown. You know, it has that kind of character to it. It brings it out of me as a driver. And it's totally part of the experience of driving a car like this. You just can't help but feel like a badass. Or maybe I'm just crazy.